You ever notice how the kindest people always end up with the most draining relationships? There's a reason for that, and it's way darker than you think. I'm your friend from Mindly, where we break down the psychology behind everyday behaviors. And today, we're talking about something that'll make you rethink every nice person you know, including yourself. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why empathetic people become targets, how to spot when someone's weaponizing your compassion, and most importantly, how to protect yourself without losing who you are. Because here's the thing, empathy isn't the problem. It's what people do when they see it in you. The invisible target on your back. Let's be real, empathy is supposed to be a good thing, right? It's what makes us human. It's what helps us connect, understand each other, feel less alone in this mess we call life. But here's what nobody talks about. Empathy also makes you visible to the exact wrong people. Think about it. When you're someone who naturally picks up on emotions, who feels what others feel, who can't help but care, you're broadcasting a signal. And certain people? They're scanning for that signal like a radar. Empaths, people with high emotional sensitivity, don't just understand feelings. They absorb them. You walk into a room and you can feel the tension before anyone says a word. Someone tells you they're fine, but you know they're not. You can't watch the news without feeling physically drained. Sound familiar? Here's what's happening in your brain. Your mirror neurons, the parts of your brain responsible for empathy, are working overtime. While most people's mirror neurons activate when they see someone in pain, empaths have heightened activity in these areas. You're not just observing emotion, you're experiencing it as if it's your own. And that's beautiful. Until it's not. The story of Daniel. Let me tell you about Daniel. He's a graphic designer, 29 years old, always the one his friends call when they're going through something. Last Tuesday, he's having coffee with his coworker Amanda. She's telling him about her breakup, again, for the third time this week. Daniel listens. He always does. He asks questions, offers perspective, feels genuinely bad for her. 2 hours later, Daniel realizes something. He's exhausted. Not tired, drained. Like someone pulled his battery out. And here's the kicker. Amanda never once asked how his week was. Didn't notice he looked stressed. Didn't see that he'd been checking his phone anxiously because his mom's in the hospital. Daniel drives home, and it hits him. This isn't the first time. It's a pattern. People come to him when they need something, and he gives until there's nothing left. And the ones who take the most? They never seem to give back. What Daniel doesn't realize yet is that Amanda can sense his empathy. Not consciously, but people who need constant emotional supply develop a sixth sense for finding it. They're drawn to empaths like moths to a flame. And they'll keep coming back until the flame burns out. The 6 phrases that should make you pause. People who drain empaths say specific things. Listen for these. You're the only one who understands me. Translation: you're the only one who'll listen to me talk about myself for hours. I knew I could count on you. Which really means, I knew you wouldn't say no. You're so much more mature than everyone else. They're not complimenting you. They're isolating you from your support system. I don't want to burden you, but spoiler alert, they're about to burden you. After everything I've done for you. Weaponizing guilt to keep you engaged. You're too sensitive. Said when you finally set a boundary they don't like. These phrases aren't random. They're hooks. Each one plays on your empathy, your desire to help, your fear of being seen as cold or uncaring. How this shows up everywhere. At work, you're the one staying late to help colleagues finish their projects while your own deadlines suffer. Your boss knows you won't complain, so guess who gets the extra work? In relationships, your partner shares everything, their fears, their trauma, their daily frustrations. But when you try to share yours, I'm too stressed to deal with that right now. Or worse, they make your problems about them somehow. With family, you're the emotional dumping ground. Mom calls to vent. Dad needs advice. Your sibling needs money. And you're supposed to handle it because you're the strong one. In friendships, notice how the conversation always circles back to them? You could start talking about your new job, and somehow you're hearing about their job drama from 3 years ago within minutes. The pattern is everywhere once you see it. What actually happens in these dynamics? Here's the psychology you need to understand. Empaths and emotional vampires, whether they're narcissists, chronic victims, or just emotionally immature people, create a perfect storm. Empaths have weak boundaries, not because they're weak people, but because they've often been conditioned to prioritize others' feelings over their own. Maybe you grew up in a house where you had to manage a parent's emotions. Maybe you learned early that your worth came from being helpful, being understanding, being the peacemaker. Your brain literally releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, when you help others. You get a hit of feel-good chemicals from being there for people. It's not manipulation on your part, it's biology. But people who need constant emotional supply, they learn to trigger that response in you over and over. Meanwhile, they're not giving back because they can't or won't. Some are narcissists who genuinely don't have the capacity for reciprocal empathy. Others are so stuck in their own pain that they're blind to yours. Either way, you're giving from an empty cup while they take and take and take. Rachel's wake-up call. Rachel thought she was helping her friend Melissa. For 6 months, Melissa called her every night, sometimes past midnight, crying about her toxic relationship. Rachel listened, gave advice, sent encouraging texts, canceled plans to be available. Then Rachel's dad died. She called Melissa, voice shaking, needing support. Melissa answered, said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," and then, "Actually, can I call you back? Something just happened with Jake and I'm freaking out." She never called back. Rachel spent 3 days after her father's funeral comforting Melissa about her on-again, off-again boyfriend drama. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't friendship. This was a one-way street with flashing warning signs she'd been ignoring. The most painful part? When Rachel finally tried to create distance, Melissa said, "I thought you were different. I thought you actually cared." Guilt. The ultimate weapon against an empath. The neuroscience of why this happens. Your anterior cingulate cortex, the part of your brain that processes empathy and emotional awareness, shows increased activity when you're interacting with others. Research shows that empaths have heightened connectivity between the emotional centers of the brain and the areas responsible for cognition. Basically, you're hardwired to connect emotion with thought. When someone tells you they're struggling, your brain doesn't just hear it. It processes it as a problem to solve, an emotion to feel, a responsibility to carry. Here's where it gets interesting. People with narcissistic traits or chronic emotional needs have the opposite wiring. Their emotional regulation is impaired. They need external validation and emotional support because their internal system is broken. They can't self-soothe effectively. So what happens? Your overactive empathy system meets their overactive needs system. It's like plugging a power strip into a vacuum that runs 24/7. Eventually, something's gonna blow. And there's an evolutionary angle here too. Humans survived as a species because we could work together, feel for each other, support the tribe. Empathy kept communities alive. But in modern society, where we're connected to hundreds or thousands of people through technology, your empathy system is overwhelmed. You're trying to care about too many people across too many platforms while your brain is still wired for a tribe of 150. The real reason this happens. So here's what all of this actually means, and this is the part that'll probably sting a little. You're not being targeted because you're weak. You're being targeted because you're powerful. Your empathy is a gift, but like any gift, people will try to exploit it. And here's the uncomfortable truth most empaths don't want to hear. Sometimes you're complicit in your own draining. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because somewhere along the way, you learned that your value comes from being needed. You learned that love is conditional, that people stay if you're useful. So you keep giving because stopping feels like abandoning who you are. But here's what you need to understand. Real empathy includes empathy for yourself. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. You get to choose who walks through. You get to choose when to close them. And you get to stop feeling guilty about it. The people who truly care about you, they won't punish you for having limits. They won't guilt you for taking care of yourself. They won't disappear the moment you can't give. Myths and truths. Myth 1. Empaths are just naturally giving people who love helping others. Truth. Many empaths developed their empathy as a survival mechanism in childhood, learning to read emotions to keep themselves safe or to manage unstable environments. Myth 2. Setting boundaries means you're being selfish or cold. Truth. Boundaries are how you preserve your ability to care. Without them, you'll burn out and won't be able to help anyone, including yourself. Myth 3. If you're really empathetic, you should be able to handle other people's emotions. Truth. Empathy without boundaries is just self-destruction with good intentions. Even therapists have limits and professional boundaries for a reason. Myth 4. People who drain you do it intentionally because they're bad people. Truth. Most people who drain empaths aren't consciously manipulating. They're just emotionally hungry and haven't learned healthy ways to get their needs met. But your understanding of their why doesn't mean you have to be their endless supply. Myth 5. If you cut off draining people, you'll be alone. Truth. When you stop attracting energy vampires, you create space for reciprocal, healthy relationships. Quality over quantity always. Myth 6. Real friends should be able to lean on you anytime, no matter what. Truth. Real friends respect your capacity. They check in on you too. They say, "Is now a good time?" instead of assuming you're always available. What this means for you. Look, here's the bottom line. Your empathy isn't the problem. It never was. The problem is that nobody taught you how to use it without destroying yourself in the process. Starting today, you need to get honest about who's in your life and why. Ask yourself, does this person show up for me the way I show up for them? Do I feel energized or depleted after our interactions? Would this person notice if I suddenly stopped reaching out? Those answers will tell you everything. And here's your new operating system. You can care about someone and still not be available 24/7. You can empathize with someone's struggle without taking responsibility for fixing it. You can be kind without being a doormat. These things can coexist. Start small. The next time someone starts venting, ask yourself, do I have the capacity for this right now? If not, it's okay to say, I hear you, and I want to be present for this conversation when I can give it my full attention. Can we talk tomorrow? Notice who respects that and who gets angry. That'll tell you who actually values you versus who values what you provide. If you're recognizing yourself in this and it's overwhelming, talking to a therapist can really help. They can give you tools to build boundaries without guilt and heal the patterns that made you vulnerable in the first place. Your empathy is your superpower, but even superheroes need to protect themselves. Otherwise, there's no hero left to save anyone. If this helped you see things differently, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Because we're just getting started.